Alright, happy campers. Here is Rhythm Counting Level 2. I hope you've studied Level 1 and you know what you're doing with quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes, and the equivalent rests. I've already taken the opportunity to write the 3 rules of rhythm counting up here so we can refer back to them. This time we're going to start in on paired eighth notes, and paired eighth notes look like this. They can look with stems down or they can be stems up. It really doesn't matter. When we count, it's all the same thing, so we're going to leave them stems down for now. I've written the counting underneath how we count eighth notes. A full measure of eighth notes is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And when we say the and, we actually write a plus sign. So it looks like 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus, but it's not. So it's actually said 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Eighth notes usually come in pairs, beamed together with a beam here. And the great thing about that is when it's beamed together as a pair, almost all the time, the first one is always going to be a number. The second one is always going to be an and. So the second eighth note will be the and. The first eighth note will be what we call on the beat. On the beat. The second eighth note will be off the beat. So here we go further with rhythm counting level 2. This is measure 2, and you can see we begin with a quarter note. Guess what? It doesn't matter what we begin with because it's always gonna be 1. 1. And it is correct, 1. Now this is a quarter note also, but this started as a quarter note, so that takes up all of beat 1. Beat 2 begins with this note right here. Whatever it may be, that is beat 2. Then we have a quarter note on beat 2, so whatever this becomes, whatever this is dependent upon this note. That takes up all of beat 2. So this will be beat 3, no matter what it is. If it's an eighth note, a quarter note, a half note, it would be beat 3 because that is a quarter note. Takes up all of beat 2. Now, an eighth note gets half of the beat. So we are not done with beat 3 here with this note alone. This note here we will call and, because it's the second half of the beat. We're not done with beat 3 yet. Now once we play or sing or count this note here, then we are done with beat 3. These two eighth notes combine together to be one beat. Therefore, we can go on to beat 4. We'll do a little check, make sure we have 4 complete beats in the measure. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We do have 4 complete beats, because this note here finishes off the entire 4th beat. Moving on to measure 3. This is beat 1. Because that's a quarter note, this becomes beat 2. Because that was a quarter note, this becomes beat 3. Because this is a quarter note, this begins beat 4. Now, a word of warning. A lot of people make the mistake when they see eighth notes, they think, oh, we count them with ands. So a lot of people will see eighth notes and say, oh, this must be and. And then they think, oh, what do we have left? Well, we haven't put a 4 down yet, so it must be 4. That is incorrect. That is actually wrong. Because this note here has to be beat 4 because this quarter note has taken up all of beat 3. If we made this note the and, then that would be exactly like measure 2. And it is not exactly like measure 2. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So this must be beat 4. This must be the and of 4. Or the 4 and. We usually say the and of 4. Do we have 4 complete beats? All of beat 1, all of beat 2, all of beat 3, all of beat 4. We do. Rule number 1 begins with 1. This is a quarter note. We get to go on to beat 2. 2. This is an eighth note. We can't go on to beat 3 yet. So we call this the and of 2. Now we're done with beat 2. Both of these together combine to make beat 2. So therefore we call this beat 3. But where is beat 4? Oh, this is a half note. It gets 2 beats, so it's all of beat 3 and all of beat 4. We do have 4 beats in that measure. Let's look down to measure 5 down here. Every measure begins with 1. That was a quarter note that we just labeled, so we get to go on to beat 2. That is an eighth note, so we can't go on to beat 3 yet. We have to call this the and of 2. Now we're done with beat 2. We get to go on to beat 3. Not yet done with beat 3 because that's an eighth note, so we have to call this the and of 3. Now we get to go on to beat 4. That is a quarter note, so we have 4 complete beats in this measure. Measure 6. That is beat 1. And that's a quarter note. So whatever comes next, no matter what it is going to be called beat 2. Let's look at what it is. It's a quarter rest. We call it beat 2. But of course, rule number 3 is rests get parentheses. So we have to call it parentheses 2. That is a quarter rest, which means it gets 1 complete beat. And that complete beat is all of beat 2. So we get to go on to beat 3. 3. But this is an eighth note, so we're not done with beat 3. We have to call this the and of 3. Now we're done with beat 3. We get to go on to beat 4. Again, this is an eighth note, so we have to call that the and of 4. Now we're done with beat 4, and we get to finish the entire measure with 4 beats. A couple more. We start with beat 1. Always start with beat 1, but this is an eighth note. So we are not done with 1 yet. We cannot call this note here beat 2. We have to call it the and of 1. Now we're done with beat 1. We've labeled all of beat 1. We put those 2 eighth notes together. They're a complete beat. So we get to go on and we can call this beat 2. That is a quarter note. It gets all of beat 2. So whatever comes next is going to be beat 3. And you can see it's a rest, so we need to parentheses that and call it beat 3. That is a quarter rest. It gets all of beat 3. And so we get to go on to beat 4. And as we figured out by now, this becomes 4 and. Doing great. Almost done. Rule number 1, begin every measure with 1. This is a quarter note, so whatever comes next is going to be 2. We call this parentheses 2 because it's a rest. That is a quarter rest, so that finishes off of beat 2, and we get to go on to beat 3. And I think most of you by now can figure out that, oops, there we go. I think most of you by now can figure out that this is going to be 3 and 4 and. There you have it, level 2 rhythm counting.